the happier the company, the more successful it will be. The more you have happy employees and happy customers, the more financially solvent that you'll be. And in this time of great stress, it's the happy companies that are winning.
Businessman and sports mogul Ted Leonsis. Today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson. If you're in business, be it as an entrepreneur, maybe the executive of a major corporation, which comes first, business success or happiness? Well, the happiness has to come first if you want the success to follow, says one very successful businessman. Ted Leonsis was one of the early executives, top executives at America Online. He helped build that platform into the giant that it became. Then Ted Leonsis bought the NBA's Washington Wizards, the NHL's Washington Capitals, and the WNBA's Washington Mystics, and he established a major regional sports network. Now, would any of that have been possible without a strong underlying foundation of personal happiness? Not likely, he says. In fact, in his 2010 book, The Business of Happiness, Ted Leonsis reveals how happiness begets business success. I sat down with him in his Washington, D.C. office one afternoon in February to talk about the book. And by the way, he still has an AOL email address. In just a moment, my conversation with Ted Leonsis.
This is one of the more than 10,000 interviews that noted radio personality Bill Thompson did over a 30-year span. Sit back and relax, unless you're driving, in which case, keep your eyes on the road.
So here now from 2010, Ted Leonsis. Why is it wrong if I think that the equation is I'll get successful and then I'll be happy?
Well, I think we're trained that way. I think that's part of the American dream, that if you're successful, that will equate to happiness. Although we look around and we see lots of rich people, lots of quote-unquote successful people who are quite troubled and unhappy. And frankly, what I learned on both a personal basis and now a business basis is that if you're open for happiness, if your quest in life and in business is happiness, that you have a higher propensity to be successful. And that was really the aha of this book. The book is both a personal journey, my story, and really the lessons I've learned along the way and how I've applied them to business. And, not to be immodest, but it's been a tough economy the last couple of years, yet many of the businesses that I'm involved with have been breakout successful. And so I've applied this theorem and this way of looking at the world and at business, and it's worked. So the book shares those secrets and lets people to know how to look and create a life that you won't have any regret, and also to run your business, and I think a way to scale it and be very successful and grow it.
Die with a smile on your face.
Well, that was probably the reckoning that I had, and everyone has a reckoning. Every single person throughout life will have some kind of happening to them, a divorce, chemical dependency, a bankruptcy filing, you'll lose a loved one, your heart will be broken. Companies have them too. Product doesn't work, cash is tight, loan gets pulled. And I had my reckoning. I was on the wrong airplane and, honestly thought that the plane was going to crash. And so as we prepared for that, I realized that all of the things that I had accumulated, I had just sold the company and made a lot of money and had declared victory. I realized those were none of the things that I would miss, but I didn't know what I would need to do if I was given a second chance to be happy, to die with a smile on my face. And so I prayed really, really hard. And I said, I promise if I live, I'll give more than I take, and I'll play offense with the rest of my life. And obviously I made it through, and I ended up making this list of 101 things to do. And a life list becomes very important, and it's a big part of my book because a lot of the things that I wrote down 25 plus years ago as aspirations I've ended up doing, from owning sports teams to winning an Emmy Award to helping charities and giving back. And
Still waiting for that hole-in-one, I gather.
I'm still waiting for the hole-in-one, and I could just see myself at 100 years old with 100 of the 101, that being my last act. But I came to realize that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And so if you take that reckoning, and from that reckoning you make your life list, positive things come out of it. But after I made the life list, I said, there's still something missing. It's not just the activities of checking it off. So I became a student of happiness. And I started to do lots of research, lots of reading, lots of online research to help define what makes for happy people. And what do these people share in common? You know, they have longevity, they have great relationships with their wives and husbands and children and co-workers. They have a robustness about their view of the world. And amazingly, these people that I was interviewing, they were successful as well. And so there was a causality there that became very intriguing. And through the research, we found that there are some things that they share. And what the book really steps people through is this formula of communities of interest and how to participate in them and how to amp up your self-expression. I make movies, I blog every day, how to really be empathetic. Empathy is probably the human emotion that is most misunderstood, and when people show high levels of empathy, they go down in history as being heroes. And anyone can show empathy. Great leaders are very empathetic. And then finally, that you get out of the I and you get into the we. Teams win. Charitable giving, volunteerism, the more people volunteer and put in perspective their lot in life, the happier they are. And then finally, finding the higher calling in everything that you do. And so I give case histories of great companies. I have a happiness index of companies and how well they've performed. And I step people through the Washington Capitals, Revolution Money, a company I helped to start and was chairman of, that just sold in November of 2009 for over $300 million, very successful young company, sold it in the worst economy in mankind for the financial services industry. Snag Films, I talk about the films that I've been making, including Nanking. And every one of these businesses followed this formula and end up being successful. So I have proof points that this isn't just someone who wrote a book with a theory, that I've been walking the talk, and now I want to share those secrets.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's powerful about it to me as a reader is that this isn't, you didn't get a book contract, then you sat down for a few months and come up with some points and dashed it off to the publisher. You've been living this for the better part of 25 years.
Exactly. And, writing a book wasn't on my list of 101 things to do. And really what happened was I would give speeches all of the time, and I would give commencement speeches at high schools and universities, and most of my speeches were about the web or sports marketing, and I started to weave in these concepts of happiness. And after the speeches, during the Q&A, all of the questions and all of the interests were around it. And some agents heard me give a speech, and this woman walked up to me and said, "Have you ever considered doing a book?" And I said, "No, I haven't." She said, "Well, just look at the reaction of the people in this auditorium. Write a book." And so I wrote a proposal, and publishers liked it. And then for about 7 months, 2-3 days a week, 3 hours a day, I would dictate, outline. And then I got a co-writer, a good friend of mine, who took my dictation and my prose and made sure that I was grammatically sound and could turn a phrase. And next thing I knew, the book was out, and the buzz on it's been pretty good so far. I'm really humbled by the consumer reaction to it.
And deservedly so. I love this book.
That's very sweet of you and very nice of you. I think it's young people are really responding to it. Young people have a different set of expectations now in life than our generation. This economy has blasted so much value, and people are looking for something other to believe in to define their view on life. I think our new president really tapped into it. I called Obama winning early on. We show that in the book because he scored so high. He was a community activist. He was a volunteer. Oh, that's one of the first things that we say is important. He really tapped into the higher calling. He was able to activate young adults. His speeches were like theater. They were unbelievable exhibits of personal expression. And so early on, I said, well, if this formula holds true, the candidate that scores the highest on each of these points is Obama, and he won in a landslide.
After this short break, Ted Leonsis explains why every successful business needs not just one, but two bottom lines.
Are you enjoying this conversation so far?
And would you like to get a copy of the book we're talking about?
Just tap the link in our show notes or visit our website, heardeverything.com.
When you make a purchase through our affiliate links, you're also supporting this podcast.
And we thank you for your support.
Now back to my 2010 conversation with Ted Leonsis.
Let me ask you about one of the other concepts in the book. What is a double bottom line?
My belief is that everything that you do, I made a movie and I realized just making the movie wasn't enough for me. And I created a term called filmanthropy. Filmanthropy is let's make a movie that sells a lot of tickets at box office, gets critical raves, does very well on HBO or whoever buys it, but it also needs to right a wrong. It also needs to activate charitable giving. It also needs to get the activist around a subject talking about it. And so I try and look at every business, and I encourage all leaders to look at every business as a double bottom line. The Washington Capitals, we're first in the NHL in points. We're first in the division. We're first in the East. We score the most goals. We sell out every single game. But we also are very, very active in our community. Our players are role models to young adults. We raise lots of money for charities. And I look and gauge how we're doing on both sets of metrics. And I think that consumers like dealing with and buying from companies that ring both bottom lines very, very loudly. And employees gravitate and want to work harder and more productively with more passion for companies that they believe in because they are innately double bottom line businesses.
I have to tell you, I look with great anticipation as both a fan and a citizen to what this philosophy could do with the Washington Wizards in an NBA that is kind of troubled right now by various activities going on in various teams, various players. It seems to be a league in need of some of the business of happiness.
Well, the Washington Capitals, one of the reasons we're so successful is we have a otherworldly player named Alex Ovechkin. Alex is the happiest kid you've ever met in your life. His acceptance speech when he won the MVP award was, "Thank you, what a life." And he gives back. He understands what our higher calling is. He has unbelievably high levels of self-expression, the way he celebrates after goals are scored. He's very active in communities of interest. He's now the captain of our team. He's become a role model, really, for the community. The community sees a lot of itself in Alex Ovechkin. And so it really goes to prove that if you're a leader, your top player is your happiest person. It's easier to coach the team. It's easier to surrender as a fan and believe in the team. I'm the owner of the team, and I'm innately a happy person, and so we have this wonderful relationship. He gave me a blurb for the book, but he really believes it. You can tell a dysfunctional team versus a highly productive team, and it mostly emanates from the best players, and are they happy or unhappy?
It even extends to marriages and families, does it not?
Oh, very much so. You can tell happy homes. You can tell homes that perhaps have some stress in the relationships between the husbands and wives and how it affects the children. And what I've tried to do, I'm married, I have 2 children, I have my children exercising along these. My children volunteer, my children actively give back. They're very, very active in their community, and they have their higher calling as well as individuals. And so the book, the reason it's getting positive vibes and good reviews is that it's a personal self-help book. It basically posits that we as people and individuals have a right to be happy and self-actualized, and here's the formula. But then it takes it the next step and says that as a business leader or as someone who owns a business as an entrepreneur, that the happier the company, the more successful it will be. The more you have happy employees and happy customers, the more financially solvent that you'll be. And in this time of great stress, it's the happy companies that are winning.
It is tough, though, in these times of stress when your company may be teetering on the brink. It's hard to keep the stiff upper lip and be happy.
Well, I totally empathize with that. And the point I'm trying to make is that the Washington Capitals, as an example, were a struggling team in a good economy. Couldn't sell tickets, couldn't win games. We started to believe in this philosophy that we're in this together, that we want to have a very passionate community of interest. We want people to understand how we're self-expressing, how we're giving back, that here's our list of our deliverables, our life list, if you will, and that our higher calling is not even to win a Stanley Cup, it's to bring the city closer together. And remarkably, as we preached that to the players and we drafted young players and they started to grow up and get better and win, our business improved. And so here we are in a very, very tough economy, and we've sold out every single game at higher prices. There's just a great example of how you wouldn't expect a hockey team in this tough time in Washington, D.C. to be a breakout hit. And I believe that following the theorems in the book really helped propel the team to its place of prominence in the league and in the hearts and minds of our fan base.
Ted Leonsis turned 68 earlier this month. Now you can get your copy of The Business of Happiness by Ted Leonsis by tapping the link in our show notes, by clicking the link in the description below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. HeardEverything.com is where you can also find my 1999 interview with the former CEO of Burger King, Barry Gibbons.
My rule in business is hire good people, and if you want to motivate them, pay them. If you want good people, pay good. If you want excellent people, pay excellent. If you want them off the wall, brilliant, pay off the wall, brilliant. And then don't demotivate them and don't insult them.
And my 2001 interview with the head of the Longaberger Basket Company, Tammy Longaberger.
I think my father in the mid-'70s saw people become interested in American crafts and trades and what was handmade and what was made with raw materials. And there was a great interest then in what he referred to as his father's baskets.
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us everywhere you find podcasts. And thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, are men necessary? And that's kind of a rhetorical tongue-in-cheek question, but it was the title of a book in 2005 by the renowned New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd. So next time on Now I've Heard Everything, my conversation with Maureen Dowd.
Evolutionary biologists say the Y chromosome is on notice and might go out of business in 100,000 years. And what would a planet without men look like? And if you went to an all-girls Catholic high school, you know for sure that we can be just as nasty and territorial as guys.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.